So we're just going to talk about, there's anywhere from 6 to 10 Gestalt principles, depending on whose article you're reading. They've added some newer ones recently. But we're really going to focus on 4 of them today, and most likely you're going to see that you're familiar with these. There's things that you've done, but maybe this just you didn't know the terminology around it. So these are probably going to be pretty familiar to you. At the end of the slide deck, I'm actually going to show some website screenshots, and we're going to talk about which principles they're using, which ones they maybe could utilize to make the design better. So there's going to be some audience participation at the end. So please participate. That makes my job easier. So the main focus or principle behind Gestalt is that the whole is different than the sum of its parts. And that's something that we've all heard before. It's not unique to Gestalt, but it really is the foundation of all of the Gestalt principles. So just you'll see that theme throughout as we go through the 4 that we're talking about today. 2 of the very familiar, I would think, images that are related to Gestalt are the face and vase. So that's an example of the figure ground Gestalt principle, which is where if you focus on the white, you see the vase. If you focus on the black, you see the faces. So that is, again, the figure ground. And then the one on the right is where we see really a star with 5 circles, but really there's not a star or any circles in that image. And so that is called closure. That's where our eyes really connect the dots and complete the image based on how they've arranged it on the screen. So really it's like 5 Pac-Man images, but we see a star and 5 circles. So those are just some common examples of Gestalt. And we'll be using more web design examples as we go through the slide deck. So the 4th that we're going to be focused on today is proximity, similarity, figure ground, and common region. And we're just going to jump right in. So proximity really just says that the closer things are, the more related they are, the further apart, the less. So really when we initially look at this, what we see is 3 groups. We don't see 36 individual boxes. So that's really the simplicity behind proximity, just how close or far items are, how close or far your elements are on a screen indicates to the user how related they are. So in that, you can use white space to create distance to help separate things, so that can, even when you're copy, if you add white between paragraphs, that helps really chunk that out and make it easier to read. So that's one way that you can use proximity, by adding white space. And this is another example of proximity. So this is Airbnb, and on the left are the rentals, and then on the right is the map. And they've done a good job of, even within the interaction design, the map stays there on the right, even so you scroll on the left, but the map stays there so that there's still good proximity between the rentals that you're viewing and where they are on the map. Similarity, again, this common theme of the similarities between things. So we have color, shape, and size. And so you can see on this one, they're all the same shape, they're all the same size, they have the same proximity, but the color alone indicates the relationship. And then this is similar with the shape, circles versus squares, and then the size. So some examples of this. This is actually a study that Norman Nielsen Group did. And from the far left, you can see that they used text alone on the items below. And then the second one, they've added color. On the third one, they've added the up and down carrots and removed the color. And on the last one, they have the carrots. So they have the shape and the color combined. They found that going from the far left to the far right, there was a 37% improvement in how quickly people could find the items they were looking for. So when you start combining these principles, you really see a big improvement in the user experience, or in the usability of the designs. So this is, I think we've all kind of seen where you have the keyword generated graphics. So this is really using the size and the color. So the size indicates how many people are searching for these words. And then the color is kind of a topical relationship. So that's another way that you can use color and size. Figure ground. So in the examples that we see usually around Gestalt principles, the figure and ground are very balanced. There's not you almost have to focus on either the white or the black to really determine which one you're going to look at. In our web design, we really want to make sure that there's a clear distinction between the foreground and the background. And so one of the most common examples of this in web design is really the modal pop-ups. So you can you can add contrast to those windows that pop over to create that figure ground. So you can add, the overlay of the gray on the image behind. Or you can do a focus and a blur where the modal is focused and the background is blurred. And common region is the last one, and then we're going to get into examples into the audience participation part. So common region is really just saying that things that are in a similar space are related, so that you can, in web design, you can think, your headers, your footers, your sidebars, people expect similar interactions and similar things to be in those spaces. So this is another example of Airbnb. So they've created common regions with the horizontal lines and with white space. And then even up in the top corner, they've actually put a square around the form that you fill out by creating, or they did that to create a common region there. So we're actually going to use this one as our first one. So we're going to talk about what in this screen do you see where they've used one of these 4 elements. So we've got proximity, similarity, figure ground, and common region. So does anyone see ways that they're using one of those 4 in this screen design? I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Sorry, the price is in proximity to the form, so you know how much, because they make it bigger, and then you can take the action they want.
Oh,
Third time's the charm. The price is big, so they use the size, so you can easily find that information, and they put it in proximity to the form that they want you to use to find out if you can actually book for the time that you want, so you can take the call to action.
yeah, good. Any others? One I noticed also is on similarity with the icons to the left of like where it says entire home, great location. Those icons create a similarity. And they could have even added color to those to add more similarity there. Is there anything that you would maybe add to the screen to make it better? One of those 4 principles that you could apply?
So this isn't something that I would add, but something, I don't know if it was mentioned or not, but line height is really, really important. And you can see that you kind of get the principle of proximity as you look down, because line height is there. So you have your paragraphs, and then the places where everything is kind of squished together is still readable, but because of that break between the paragraphs, you look at it and you see this is a group of something that means something to me. Additionally, you kind of get the similarity from the icons on the bullet points, where you're saying these are bullet points. They all have icons next to them, so they are similar because I can really differentiate the icons out.
Good.
I guess to your point of probably improvement, I might add some horizon lines someplace, even if they're muted, just to show that this is the difference between sections.
Okay, yeah, good.
So we can contact host is right below the read more around this, read more about the space. So it looks like it's the same importance and the same action, but they're 2 totally different actions. And yeah,
So what would you do to maybe fix that?
I would change maybe the weight. Well, read more could maybe more enhance the icon maybe, so it's not such a, doesn't look so much like a link in navigation, and maybe contact host turn into a button. All right.
Yeah, so I like the idea of making the contact host a button, and then it kind of gives that similarity to the reserve button, where these are really interactions and not just navigation that's showing me more information.
Yeah, it's actually like funny to me that you point that out, because that's actually one of my biggest complaints when I actually use this website. Because like to me, that contact host thing, like, yeah, it should probably be a button, and it should be associated with the icon for the actual host up in the top, because they always have like the host information like divorced on a weird island by itself. And so like it almost would make sense to have this like grouping of information about the person that you're actually going to be doing this transaction with. And it's always really driving me crazy.
That's great feedback. Anything else on this one before we move to the next screen?
I would play with sizing, having some different sizes for more visual hierarchy.
Yeah, I mean, really, other than the title at the top, there's not a lot of differentiation on the sizing on the screen, and the dollar that you mentioned. So this is actually my OG&E dashboard. So we can just start it off again. What are your thoughts around the 4 principles on this screen? So again, we've got proximity, similarity, common region, and figure ground. So I do like how my current bill is in this common region right in the middle and up front. It's easy for me to find the thing that I need to do right away.
Yeah, it's really clear what they think is most important about this page.
Pay your bill.
Pay your bill, and it's this much.
I'm on OG&E too, and one of the things I like is it's not shown here, but once you actually pay the bill, it'll say, hey, you've got this many pending payments. So there is that feedback, so you don't try to pay it twice. But I like that you can also see the graph there of like, this is what your anticipated usage is going to be for next month too.
Yeah.
So in terms of similarity, you see this a lot with navigation. The choice of type, the font weight kind of unifies all those together. Even though they're 2 separate pieces of navigation there, they're all grouped together.
Something I noticed as I was looking through this is that, so that under the My Dashboard where they have the icons with the sub-navigation, it has the energy insights, and then down here they have view energy insights. I feel like they could have used that icon to create some similarity there to make that connection visually for me, instead of it just being a button that didn't have that same relationship without the shape.
I was going to point out the common ground of the account information. So that's like one of those pieces of thing. It's one of those things that I feel like isn't important until it is. So I've been to like websites recently where it's like they've redone the UI and it's like a lot more user friendly. You know, it's less like clunky and corporate or like enterprise looking.
Yeah.
And it looks like a lot more cleaner. They have more colors and stuff like that. But then there's like no information. Like there's no, like whenever I need the account number, I can't actually find it. So I feel like that was like, that's actually really well placed. It's in the center right by the bill and easily accessible.
Yeah.
So one of my, I think probably my most negative critique of this screen is that in relation to these concepts, it's like that section that we were just talking about with kind of the icons and the text at the top. I think that, first of all, to me, that's a very classic example of completely unnecessary icons. Like they just have no reason to be there. And I think you could have actually just used a simple association of type, color, and size into some kind of maybe tabbed element to where that would have been a lot more legible. Because to me, my eyes just don't even see that. It's just a bunch of gibberish at the top, and then I see my bill. And
Yeah, to that same point on the colors, I keep wanting to make associations with things that are blue or red or yellow, and really they have no meaning on the screen. Yeah. So they didn't do a good job there with the color. All right, we'll move on to the next one then. Oh, so this was, so this is the place that I buy my baby chicks from. We have chickens. And the chat over here is just an example of figure ground. Not a lot going on the screen, but any feedback or thoughts?
It kind of blends in.
It almost doesn't have enough contrast. Or yeah, they need a little bit more going on there, either a bigger shadow or something to create a better figure ground.
It's also, especially because the projector's not as good on the left, but it's very hard to see how to close it if you're trying to just move on with your day in the website. Mm-hmm. It makes me almost want to leave the website once I get my question answered.
Yeah.
They could have used a different color for that green header chat with us to make it stand out more too. They're trying to match the branding, but it doesn't stand out that way.
Right, yeah, they could have done a better job with their color for sure. Yeah, the yellow at the top. All right, the next one, oh, go ahead.
Hello. So just one quick thing that I noticed that's kind of irritating me. If you look at the header, you know, Meyer was like their logo. That's really, really tiny, and it looks like they have, like they didn't make the background transparent, because it looks like they're like the white box around Meyer, and then whatever is that little yellow dinosaur-looking figure on the left. I can't tell what that is.
I think it's supposed to be a chicken.
Okay. Well, it's just, if you look at that, and then if you look at the shop button next to it, the shop button, the yellow box, is a lot larger than their logo, which doesn't really seem to make sense. And I feel like they were trying to bring attention to the shop button. I'm assuming you can, like you said, you can buy poultry from them and whatnot. But it looks off. It looks like they should have either like condensed the yellow square or enlarged the font size. It looks, I don't know, there's something about it that just looks clunky, and
Yeah, I completely agree.
yeah,
And I think
like
some of that
nobody
is-
really spent time thinking about it. They were like,
As
oh,
far
let's
as-
just put that there. So.
Yeah, I think as far as, the logo definitely, from a hierarchy size standpoint, it should be larger. It's like everything else feels kind of modern and clean, and then you have this logo that looks like it's from 1980. So,
I just had one more little thing about the shop button. That white is really hard to read on that yellow.
yeah, it's poor contrast.
And making it black or another dark color would also make it easier to read, but also further make it stand out as this is different. This is different from all the other buttons because it's the active button or the one we want you to use. Again, you know, these are all similar. These are both different, the color and font color.
Is that a button or is it the active? It's hard to.
So this was just
Yeah.
when I landed on their website, that's how it looked. So I had not navigated anywhere yet.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to point out another Gestalt principle, if I said that right. So like chat is a really good example of that with proximity, because all of their messages would be on the left.
Oh, yeah.
All of your messages would be on the right. That's common with chat UIs, so that's,
Sure.
just wanted to point that out. It's a good example of that.
Yeah, even, you could even consider it part of common region, like they've created this region that's gonna be dedicated to that functionality.
The other nitpick I have with the chat widget is I don't know if it's because you just haven't actually started typing in the field, if the send button appears. But yeah, yes, it is convention for people that are very familiar and well-versed in chat to hit enter, and that's what sends, versus I've got an older neighbor that has farm animals and raises chickens that if they were to venture to this website, they may not know that.
Right, yeah, and I honestly, I'm not sure, but that's a good point.
So, but having also built, this looks to me like probably a template site where they used a thing, and as somebody that's, that was part of my career at one point, I have a feeling that some of those decisions, like make my logo bigger or stick it here, were more client-driven than the designer having control over it.
All right, I think we have one more. So this is Hideaway. I don't know how many of y'all order from Hideaway online. I love the special request section because we always go light sauce and well done, but and I like how you can pick, your left and your right side if you want half of your pizza to be one thing or the other. So I think that where it shows, the three icons where you can pick your left, your full, or your right side for the topping, I think is a good example of shape. For Similarity, they have this region on the side, the common region for what you've actually ordered, and as you click on something, it adds it over there. But there's a lot going on the screen, so I expect there to be some good conversation here. Yeah.
The first thing that stands out to me is they definitely could have grouped the toppings logically, either a border around them or a different color background behind each one, maybe related, like a reddish color for meat, green for veggies, something that be like, I'm looking for meat that I want to put on, your eye would go right to it rather than maybe there's just a random list of toppings.
Yeah, that would have been a good use of color if they had done that, yeah.
I would say also more spacing too, but if you do like the colored background, like he was suggesting, that does help it, but you still need to make sure those elements breathe a little bit.
Yeah, add some or some distance.
Okay, so I actually love this screen, and I think it's really great. Except for the one thing that all of the developers I work with would recognize as a standard tirade for me, whereas I hate the add to order button on the top right, because it's like breaks the linear action of the page. And so it's just like I want to pick the things and then add them, and then pick the things and then add them.
Yeah, it breaks the user flow.
Yeah, and so I hate that. But otherwise, I think it's great.
And it's kind of a proximity issue too. It's like you've got all your stuff that you're doing here, and then the buttons are way up over here. Yeah.
So this is just a comment from those watching on Twitch, but probably for us here in the building, it's not so easy to notice. We can read it, we can make out the text, but the text doesn't seem to scale. So whenever they're looking at it online, it's like, well, it's a little bit difficult to see. So the text weight and the breathing space and everything, there's a lot of space around the options. They could reduce some of that space to increase the size of the text so that it scales better to different screen proportions, etc. And that would still keep it that everything is grouped together, but then you'd be able to see it as well. And then that would also differentiate the text from the ground as well, just a little bit more.
Okay, yeah.
So I just have a question, and I'm pretty blind, so it may just be because I can't see. So if you go to like the meat toppings under Canadian bacon, you have the 3 circles with the red icons. What are those? Because it looks like Facebook, and then like the at sign. Okay, because that's very difficult to read, because it literally looked like Facebook, like it was social media links.
Would have been screen, it's a little bit easier to see.
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty easy to use interface, I have found anyway. But there's always room for improvement. So one thing I did do was the right side, where it shows everything that you've ordered, and some of it's for the left side and some of it's for the right side, but it's really hard to tell up here. Like, what did I put on the left side and what did I put on the right side? Because it's all just, like, there's left, left, right, right, left, right. It's not even, I think it's just in the order that I added them to my pizza. So it makes it really hard to say, okay, well, did I get all the stuff on the left side and right side that I meant to? So one thing I did, applying some of the principles that we've talked about today, so on the left side is the before, and on the right side, I was like, well, they could have reused their left and right icons, and they could have grouped them better for me, and it would have been at a glance much easier for me to tell what I had put on my pizzas. So that was one thing that I applied there. I think that's the end. Oh no, we have one more, Southwest. This is a very busy screen too. Pretty easy to use, but they've got a lot of different elements going on here. I think almost all of them, except for maybe figure and ground is, I think all of them are used here, whether good or bad. Comments, thoughts?
What's the middle section?
With the line?
Yeah, it looks like it's tying 2 people, or tying 2 things together.
So it's the beginning and end of your flight. So if you don't have any stops, there won't be an icon in the middle. So each icon in the middle is a stop on your itinerary. Yeah,
And
for me to
then-
get the whole screenshot, I kind of had to make these small, so sorry about that.
Is it like what you do at that stop?
It tells you where the stop is, like it'll say Denver or Phoenix.
What's the arc over?
Oh,
Okay, so like you will do a layover in Denver and then you'll just stay on the plane in Tucson on that one on
okay, yeah, see, I didn't even know that.
the, okay.
Okay, so I actually like this screen a lot too. And I sympathize a lot with the person that had to make this. So what I do really love, I love the sort of indicators for colors for links on the flight numbers, because that's information that you might actually want. It looks like those are linked. Are those linked?
Yeah, I believe they are.
Okay. And so yeah, that looks like information that I would want, and I know that it's a link, and I know that it's like really quickly accessible. I like that it's broken down into these like kind of like standard like 3-column fields that's really easy to understand really quickly, and the pricing is also broken down really simply in a way that I understand immediately. So anyway, I like it.
To your point on the pricing, so to me this brought up like all the squares that we saw on the proximity screen at the beginning. So there's I think like, I don't know, 27 I think prices right here, but we don't look at that and think, oh, I have 27 prices to look at. You just see this block of all this stuff is related, and then you don't look at the details until you dive in further. I like how the nonstop also has the blue text, so that those are kind of quicker for me to find, because you always want nonstop.
Yeah, I was going to say, as somebody that's flown twice in my life, I actually like the screen because of like the nonstop tags and just being able to very clearly see, what the time is. And I know now, but it'd be nice to say if it was like local time, because if you're flying across time zones, knowing is this 10 o'clock local time, or is that going to be 10 o'clock where I was?
Right.
So that way I can account for actual hours traveled and things like that. And I also like the low fare calendar, so that way if you're just looking to get a good deal, you can do that too.
The double repeat of the flight info, like you have it up in the blue bar, and then you also have it large on the page. With the blue bar, you have the modify feature, but that seems to be the only reason to have that up there, is just so you can modify. It feels like that could be moved down, and I feel like blue bar information is more like account info, like if I wanted to go, and I don't know. Anyway, it seems like there's a lot, but it may take away page clutter too. I don't know. Yeah. Yep.
On the screen, maybe not necessary. And really, even just from a proximity standpoint, it's kind of far away from everything else. I'm not even going to notice it probably. Yeah.
That's something else that just caught my attention, is it'd be nice to be able to either filter it according to, do I want to see nonstops first versus shortest time or whatever for layovers. And is that Tuesday on the one that's like 7:05 p.m. to 11:55, like the third one down, that it like lets you know that it's flying over a day or across midnight? Because it's the one that has the two switching things.
I think that's Tucson. It's TUS. For
Okay.
Tucson is where
Okay.
one of the layovers is.
I almost feel like it all kind of blends together to me. The different sections of the page, it needs more like organization with like proximity or sizing or grouping, because you move right from your date selection into your filters, into the choices, and it's kind of up to you to pick where you start.
Yeah, and if I were using the screen, I actually would have it filtered like for nonstop and things, but I left it unfiltered just so we could see the different, how they've designed the different elements.
So I actually disagree, no offense. I was looking at this. I think this is a really nice example of how grouping things can create a lot of logic and intuition, because they only used maybe 4 or 5 icons in this entire page. And by grouping all of these things together in such a way, it's clear that these are all the flights for this day, all your times are on the left, your layovers are in the middle, and then your price options are on the right. So I think it's really well done the way they've just grouped information in such a way, with some extra styling, but not a whole lot of graphics, and it's all very clear.
Right. And it's all the information you need at this point in the journey too, so.
Well, it helps to look on this screen and see the color for the dates. I couldn't see that.
Oh, gotcha.
Who's
Oh, this one is brighter, isn't it?
One thing I love about Southwest is it's easy to tell how many seats are left I think it's only on that 219, so I can clearly see that the 125 flight, there's only this many seats left for that price point. Kind of creates a sense of urgency without it being too obviously flashing in your face.
Where are you seeing that?
On the third row, yeah, from the bottom.
Oh, I see,
Mhm.
yeah.
So I'm thinking through this. I guess I'm gonna have to ask as a question because I don't know as much as maybe everyone else. So sometimes it's really interesting to me that like businesses have different goals than actually what the customer really needs. So going back to Airbnb's example, I almost wonder if they've intentionally not made contact hosts like, super easy to do. I don't know, just a thought. But in this view, to me, left means priority, but those are the more expensive options. But anyone goes to this and immediately goes to want to get away, which they've highlighted with yellow.
Right.
So it's almost like they're kind of like doing both things. I'm kind of asking it as a question too. Like I don't know if maybe in this particular view that right is more of a priority for action, or what it is. I mean, but they can mark up more if left, but they've highlighted the lower prices. Does that make sense? Kind of what I'm asking.
Yeah.
I don't know if
It
anyone has
does.
any thoughts or clarity on that. I just think it's interesting that they've done it that way, and I think it works well. It gives the customer a little bit, and then also allows them to do their.
Yeah, it kind of highlights both the business goal and the user need.
Speaking of that, I think they've done it really well in a way that if you're in a hurry, you're going to get that first one that you see, and that's going to be the one that's best for them. But if you are willing to take your time because you want to find a cheaper price, then it's still there and it's still highlighted. So I'm sure that was intentional, where you're like, I just need to get a flight now. I don't care how much it costs. There are unbelievably some people who do things that way. So they're just going to hit, okay, there I go. And even the colors are subtly like more distinct for the higher prices. Like, yeah, it's yellow for the one to get away, but it's definitely a deeper, richer color for the business select, and then a little less so as it goes.
Yeah, it really feels like the anytime is just almost like, for 20 more bucks, like why is it even there?
Yeah.
If I'm gonna go at that point, I might as well just go business select, right?
Yeah. Because I know, like me, like if I'm looking left to right, because first I'm going to look at if the times work, and then I'm going to look at the layovers, and then I'm going to look at the price, and then if I see that price and I'm like, I'm going to keep looking.
Right.
But it's for them, if you stop there, then good for you, and good for them. My main criticism of this is just I would like to see more division between the rows. Either just, a simple line or maybe alternating subtle colors, wouldn't have to be crazy drastic color differences, but just something to where you can easily, without thinking about it, scan one line at a time.
Yeah, because there is a big space between when I'm looking at the flight times versus the prices, which to me are two of the most important things.
Because I might just look and see
So,
what's
yeah.
the cheapest one, and then look and see if the time works, and it's
Right.
just, it would be really easy to go right across and see that.
Yeah, that's a good observation.
So I just had a couple of comments in terms of his question, and it kind of relates to like the common region concept, because really the want to get away, I believe the reason it's probably there is because, first of all, it is a common region for that price tier or whatever, but we're also very trained as modern citizens to look at receipts, invoices, and spreadsheets, and that is a total column. And so it's kind of like, I think for the like immediate like price shopper, it's just like, just give me the dollar amount. I just want, the person that's most conscious of price is looking for the cheapest fare, and that's gonna be where they immediately go with their eyes. Whereas like the business select passenger is gonna be looking probably for a little more specifics, a little more choosy, like have a little more stipulation on times of layover and things like that. And I think they're gonna be following more your approach, where it's like going from left to right, like clarifying the times, clarifying time in transit, and like, price is kind of their last concern.
Right, yeah.
And to kind of build on that, the reason I think that the middle column exists is to really give more of what the value of the want to get away is. It's a psychology thing. So that way it's like, wow, I'm getting a good deal, because normally it's this.
Right, Well, it's even on the other side of that, it's like I said, it's like, well, I might as well spend $22 more for the business class because so either way, like, that's not your best option. But it is, you're right, it's a psychology thing. Give me 3 options and we know one of them is not gonna be really very valuable.
This is just a silly add-on to that, but when I was in merchandising, we would actually call that legitimizing the upgrade. And so, like, you pretty much always, like, for a product line, you pretty much always want something in the middle that almost no one buys. And, like, no one ever buys the one in the middle, ever. Everybody either buys the cheapest one or they buy the most expensive one, and the middle legitimizes the cheapness of the bottom and the more expensive one on the top.
That reminds me, I worked at the movie theater, was my first job when I was 16, and anytime someone ordered a medium drink, it was like for 20 more cents, you get 20 more ounces. So same exact thing, yeah. Marketing. Yeah, yeah, we didn't sell medium drinks. All right, well, that's what I have today. So I think, like I said at the beginning, I think all of these principles y'all were already utilizing and familiar with, maybe just, you know, the terms proximity, figure ground, common region, Gestalt. Those maybe were not as familiar, but my guess is that you're already familiar with these and using them, so I hope you enjoyed today. I will be sharing the slide deck out on our Slack channel. I do have a list of resources. So the NNG group that I mentioned earlier, where we had the 4 different versions of the screen with the colors and the shapes and without, there's a link to that article. And there's some other links in here. And then the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are really more about like the psychology and the history, if you really want to delve deeper into that. But I just wanted to provide some resources if anyone was interested to go a little further with it. So I'll be sharing that out in the next couple days on the Slack channel. That's it. Thanks, guys.